You're listening to a Sculpted Life podcast brought to you by Tiya International. Interviews with creatives around the globe.
Welcome to A Sculpted Life podcast. I'm your host, Yvonne Anderson. In today's episode number 11, the last in this season, I'm talking to mixed media artist, sculptor and teacher Kya Stevenson Smith from Scotland. We both have Scottish accents, so you'll either love that or some of you will not understand a word we are saying. Regardless, we hope you enjoy this episode.
So when did I have the compulsion to create? I think I've always done that since I was little. And certainly in primary school, we would have projects and things to do. You always had some kind of art thing to do. But at home, it was mainly just sort of like sketching and drawing and, you know, that kind of thing when I was little.
And where was home?
Oh, well, I'm an army brat, so we were all over the place. So that started in Germany and then various primary schools and then in the UK, you know, like Kirknewton and Pennycook and that kind of thing. And then settled in Livingston when I was 13.
Oh. Yeah. And so you've been doing it since a very early age then, I guess.
Yeah. That's when I always knew that I was kind of like arty, if you like, and wanted to like, and I was always sort of curious about how things are put together, how things were made, and so that always kind of interested me. Shapes and everything interests me. But as a child, it was always just about wanting to build something like out of plasticine or something like that, you know. I would say I started off 2D with sketching and things like that, and I like reference things in front of me. So if I was going to be making something 3D, then I would have like something I've drawn or something that I've found, you know, a picture that I would want to like see how that would look in clay or something like that.
And did your parents encourage that?
No, well, I suppose it was just, you know, I suppose they just thought of it as something to keep me entertained, and you know, so if I'm sitting there making things out of paper or making things out of plasticine or something, then I'm fine and I'm happy sitting there. I'm quiet, And or if I'm drawing, I used to love drawing horses. I'm not saying I was ever good at it, but I used to love drawing horses. But sketching was a big thing for me. I'd sit with a pad and just sketch for things.
And so then those sketches, you decided that you would like them to be 3D, and did you take them off the page and start actually making those sketches into something with plasticine? Is that how it started?
Yeah, probably. That's probably more likely where it would be. I remember making little like what I would try and make a horse out of plasticine and try and make it a thing, but I didn't really get into it in a big way until later on in life. You just, you know, moving around a lot and changing schools and, you know, things just changed. I remember one project really clearly in primary school, and we were to do prison scenes in a shoebox. So we were to do like a prison room or something, and you were partnered up with another kid, and I was in charge of making the little toilet that was that was in this prison cell, and we would do the bars and all of this kind of thing. But this little toilet, I was so proud of this little toilet because I even put the water in it with, you know, clear glue, and I would make it like murky looking, like what I would think a prison toilet would look like, and did the little toilet seat and the little toilet lid and, you know, this kind of thing. So I remember that and being really proud of that.
And did you get a good mark for it?
As far as I remember, I did. It was talked about. So
you kind of took it that one step further than everybody else, probably.
And I did art O grade in high school. But other than that, no.
And so you went from plasticine to, did you move on to, you said clay?
Yes, I mean, when I started, I mean, I've tried all sorts of things over the years. I'm one of these people that's like, I get something that's really interesting. I think, oh, I want to try that. And I've got a very yes, I can attitude. So if I'm shown how to do something, I'm pretty confident knowing that I can do it. And so I would see different things. And so I've tried loads of different crafty things and arty things over the years. But when I started getting into sculpting more, it was to work with my mixed media projects. So it was making things out of maybe polymer clay or faces out of maybe a modelling clay or something like that, and then embellishing it and with modelling paste and things like that. So I'm more of a mixed media artist, yeah.
Yeah. So as you grew up, it was just always part of your life.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it took a back seat a lot of the time. Life, family, and work and that kind of thing as I was coming up and different jobs and things. But it was always there in the background, whether I was sitting drawing or even doing some cross stitch or something, creating a picture out of threads and things. I was always doing something, but it was always on a hobby kind of level. I would pick up little tips and things of, the school of YouTube. Mine of information is wonderful. And how someone would do a certain thing, and then I would apply it to whatever it was that I was trying to do. Yeah. Okay. I like picking up information and think, oh, I never thought of trying that, and I'm going to try it with this that I'm working on, so.
Was there a time when you decided that you wanted to make art a more permanent fixture in your life? Like, was there a time when you ever thought, could I make money from my art?
Yeah, I had been working mainstream jobs all my life, and so art was always sort of like on a back burner there, but not forefront. And I just wanted to get out of the mainstream working and just do something for myself. And so my husband had says, right, come on, because I'd been making all these altered bottles and things like that with my mixed media, and of course you've only got so much room in the house before you have to have an outlet to sell it. So he had given me the opportunity just to leave mainstream job and set up on my own. And I don't make a living, but it's something I love doing, so everything's covered, and that's fine.
So you get to create most days now.
Yeah. No. Yes.
Excellent.
Every day.
And how has that changed your perception of your art life, I guess? So do you reckon you're more prolific now with art?
Oh yeah. Well, I've become hugely interested in sculpting. So all my interest is basically kind of going there now. I still do all my bread and butter kind of work, but which is my mixed media stuff, and on smaller versions and things, like smaller scale. But I've sort of been leaning more into sculpting more, so my interest is like hugely into that, and it's all about, what's going to be the next project and everything. And it to me, it puts a fire in my belly. It gives me something to get like super passionate about and excited. Give me, wanting to run into the studio and say, "All right, okay, what's next?"
What am I making today? What am I making today?
Yeah.
And where would you say your art is kind of what? Now you said mixed media is your kind of bread and butter, and I guess so you're selling that work to people.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, at fairs and online, and and I supply a shop over in Cowdenbeath as well. So nice. He sells a lot of my stuff. Yeah.
That's like. And what kind of art would you say, if you could describe the pieces you make in 3 words, what would they be?
I've kind of found with my mixed media work, I know what's kind of selling, and so I've kind of stuck with that style.
what's working.
Yeah, and it's only when I move into something a bit more like, I think, oh well, I want to try it this way, or I want to try something else, that then I'll move out. So 3 words, let me see. Fantasy, probably one of them. Eclectic, because it is diverse, and it is, you know, I'm quite happy to try my hand at anything. And do you know, it's been described, my work has been described as maybe soft Gothic.
Ooh.
Work.
Okay.
Yeah. But going into sculpting on a bigger scale, it will be more nature-based and more animals and thing-based. Yeah.
So tell me, what inspires your art? Like what kind of gets you, like you mentioned earlier, YouTube, which I think everybody I've interviewed, every creative person has said YouTube magic. Like, what did we do before that for inspiration? And I guess it was books. But do you have a artist that you, I guess, look up to, or you want to emulate, or you want to be like that kind of person, or that inspires your art?
Oh gosh, I don't remember names. I'm really terrible for names. And I try not to cling on to other people's artwork, because that's very much their style, and you know, you can get absorbed too much, and then I don't want my work to start looking like somebody else's, you know, kind of thing. But as for like techniques, oh gosh, Kim Beaton, huge, because you know, Brienne and Grandpa Dragon, wow. So that was just huge for me. I can't really remember
any favorite books.
Names of them. I've got faces in my head, but yeah. No, I don't read books. I'm more of a visual, hands-on person, so books confuse me a little bit. I get lost in the words with books. Yeah.
And so you were mentioning, we've talked about a little bit about what mediums you've used, and just for people who are listening, Heather is actually a trained Paltai premium teacher. So we'll talk. I mean, I don't like to concentrate much on our product on these podcasts, because it's not really about that. It's more about your life as a sculptor. But in that, I guess Paltai Premium has been a big part of your art life, because you've started making the most beautiful big sculptures. And I guess, how did you first find out about the product, and what kind of, you know, how did that inspire you to go bigger with your work?
Right, well, I started off sculpting using like polymer clays, other different clays and epoxy clays and things like that. But you know, with polymer clays, you have to bake it. So everything was always on a small scale. And I started off only sculpting to make embellishments for my mixed media art. So it would just be involved in it. So if I wanted something that looked like an elephant, then I would put it on, you know, I would do an elephant and then put it into the art. But because I wanted to go bigger, I had started making a dragon head. So I was making this dragon head bust, and I'd done all the armature and everything, and I thought, I'm going to go onto YouTube and see what other artists have used for bigger projects. And I had come across a few that were using epoxy clay, and I thought, right, okay, because I wanted at some point maybe to put the dragon outside, dragon head outside, and so I needed it to be hardware and obviously something that size. I don't have any way of baking it, or you know, kiln
whole dragon head in your oven.
Yeah, whole dragon head out. So I had bought the epoxy clay, and halfway through I was still looking at YouTube and just other tips and techniques and things, and I came across the YouTube video that Kim had done for Brienne.
Okay, yeah.
And she was explaining about the product. When I went to the site, then I went to her the channel, and I thought, that's it. That is what I'm looking for. That is just perfect. It ticked every single box. It could go outside. I can go as big as I want. And armature doesn't have to be expensive steel things, and I certainly don't need any expensive equipment to cure it. So it just seemed to tick every box. But at that time, I was halfway through my dragon at the time, but still at that time it wasn't available in the UK, as in there wasn't stockists in the UK.
Yeah.
And the costs were probably getting it shipped over would have been too much. So I knew that I had to wait until I could get my hands on it.
So when you found that it was here, you obviously got some to try. I think I recall that you bought a small bag to try, just to try it out. Or
that was the plan.
Okay.
That was the plan, but it didn't happen. I didn't actually. The first ever chance that I had to get my hands on Tiya was when I was actually doing my teacher training.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
The time, this is it. This is my first experience of Tiya.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just went in with, this was, to me, it was ticking every box already in my mind. And so it's, I knew that it was just now a case of learning how to work with it. And then I would go off and I would practice with it and see what I could achieve. Yeah.
And you have achieved some beautiful. If you have one of your pieces there, can we see it?
I have my elephant head here.
Okay.
And he's special to me. And I don't know. I'm hoping I'm not too.
Oh, wow. That's a lot bigger than what I thought it was.
No,
Now
right?
I see it next to you. Wow. Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, look at it. That's beautiful.
I love the boy.
And that was your first sort of bigger piece, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. For him, he's special to me because I'd always done everything small scale before. I was just sort of playing at it, and it was more for like my mixed media art. But he was the first big piece that I did, and I thought, gosh, I can do this. So he's he's very special to me. Yeah.
I think we've got a little video on our channel of him being built. If anyone wants to go and see it on YouTube, just type in Tiya, and one of the playlists will have Heather's gorgeous elephant being made. But I think that's the first time I've seen it kind of getting held up in front of me, and I was like, wow, that's absolutely amazing. That's beautiful. And you've painted him and everything. Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah. So we'll get a picture of that as well for the blog, so we can pop it up there if anyone wants to go and have a look at that as well. So obviously you've become quite proficient in it, and you've been doing some classes in it as well, which is fantastic. So long may that continue. The more people that hear about us in the UK is it's amazing. So how has that changed your life? Like, obviously you've gone bigger, and you also did a big bird bath, did you know, as well?
He grew arms and legs. I mean, he was never meant to be that big.
Is he in the garden?
Not yet. I've still got to finish off the paintwork.
Wow.
Because I've done so many other things for classes, and I do demos and this kind of thing. So with making all of that, it's been sort of put to the side to get it all finished painted. But it stands about 4 foot tall, and someone says to me, I can't remember who it was now, I think it was Joe's dad, was it Bob?
Bob Stafford? Mm-hmm.
He had says, you're going to have to build a diving board for the kingfishers.
Yeah, and I want to see it when it's done. So you have to promise me that you'll send us a picture when it's all finished and painted, because I can't wait to see it, what it's like when it's finished, because it looked absolutely beautiful when I last saw it. So
big face.
Yeah. And what was it like compared to the clay you'd been working with when you first sort of used it? What was your first kind of initial reaction?
It's softer, and when you need it, it's like it's hard to say it's like dough, but it's kind of like dough when you're kneading it, and then you know you've got a sort of batch of this clay, but it's much kinder on the joints of the hands and everything, because you know with polymer clays you have to condition it so it's pliable enough to use it. Yeah.
It's coming back to me now. I remember that it was the first time, because I remember you mixed the perfect batch first time round, which I don't think I'd ever seen anyone else do.
The dangle queen.
That's right. You did the dangle test so beautifully the first time. I was like, how did she do that? It's all coming back to me now. It was a big year last year. Forgive me for not remembering straight away, but I remember now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I was like, wow. So what do you think you will do in the future? Like with your art, what can you see happening in the future? Like obviously you want to do more classes and things like that and teach other people how to use it. What was your experience of teaching people how to use something so different?
It's
any
great.
Tips?
Any tips?
Any tips for anyone listening who might be scared to dive in for something new? Or
Well, I think certainly with my classes, there's a lot of people that have come. They've just come in for the experience to do a little bit of sculpting and do some activity for the day. And many of them have said, you know, that they've never had any experience with doing anything arty. They don't think they're creative and all of this kind of thing. But once they actually get in and you show them little tips on how to do something, you know, to get it all looking the way that they're wanting it to look, then they see then that it's, you know, it's great fun and they're wanting to apply this, and you know you have to keep them under control, because then it starts you'd be there like for 2 weeks.
Recently, for people who are listening and also, you know, for people who are watching, recently Heather did a hen party with Tiya Premium, didn't you? How did that go?
Yeah.
Were there any Tiya penises?
Those were never shown in the photos.
Kept under wraps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
funny. Did they have fun?
Yeah. They always do, and they're always wanting to come back and do more.
Great.
So.
So is there something that you dream of doing in the future, like a big project? Like I know you've gone bigger, as in the bird bath bigger. Is there anything that you would like to work on in the future that you're like, with any medium, is there anything that you can think, oh, I've always wanted to do X, but I've held myself back, or I don't think I can, or is there anything like that you think you'd have a dream project that you want to complete?
I really like the idea of just making bigger things that people can climb on. You know, like Grandpa Dragon and that, but you know, like big, huge snails and caterpillars and things like that. So, oh gosh, there's so many. I've literally got a bucket list of things that I want to make before I just end my time here. I think ultimately I would love to be involved, if it's not just me, but even to be involved in a massive project that would maybe be in some national park or museum or something, or, you know, being part of that would be a dream. When it comes to work stuff, I think I'm coming more and more away from it, and that I want to do more sculpting on a bigger scale. Like I want to do life-size sculpts of my dogs. I've got 2 German Shepherds, and I'd love to have a life-size sculpt of 2 of them. And I've got a photo of the 2 of them together where it's just so cute. And so I'd really like to do that, or for myself, for these type of things, you know, personal projects. But certainly for a dream thing, it would be having a large piece. I would need space to do it. I don't have much space here. Okay. So I would need more sort of studio space to actually be able to make something that big. But to make something big enough that can go into like a woodland park or something like that, that would be amazing. I would love that.
The archway to hide in a sort of, garden somewhere and just let people discover it.
Yeah.
That'd be quite cool.
That is amazing, isn't it? And see all the projects that you've seen coming up now on the Tiya site, where people have just managed to buy themselves some Tiya, and they're just a customer of Tiya Premium, and they go and make this amazing sculpture, and it's their first time of ever doing sculpting and things like that. That to me is hugely inspiring. That to me, I look at and see at some of the works that people are coming out with. That's amazing to me. I think that's just wonderful.
It's lovely to see people just, I always say that we love kind of the fact that we're able to help people break that barrier between themselves and traditional sculpting. It's like someone said the other day on one of the podcast interviews, it's clay all grew up, it's what clay wants to be. But it's so nice to see people creating, and I guess like if you could pass on any wisdom to anyone who wants to be creative, and you've now made that your kind of life, and I guess your joy and your passion, what would you say to someone who is kind of holding themselves back and who maybe wants to start being creative but they're not sure where to begin?
Oh gosh, where to begin? YouTube. There's loads of lovely little tutorials and things on YouTube. But to be creative, as in like with sculpting, do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, or any form of art, like drawing, what keeps people coming back to it, I guess, and what's kind of any motivation or encouragement you could give someone to keep creating?
Oh, artists are their biggest critics, aren't they? All creatives actually are their biggest critics. Yeah. But and I've certainly went through that myself, where I've seen wonderful pieces of sculptures that people have done and thought, oh man, I'm never going to be able to be as good as that. And it does kind of knock you a little bit, but you've got to remember that your style is your style, and when you're working on something, you're putting part of you into that. And for people that don't think they're creative, I think just even getting some of the techniques, if you're shown any tips, I don't think you can teach anybody to have that desire. I don't think you can teach that. I don't think you can teach an imagination, maybe. But what you can do is you can teach them techniques and tips on how to make something, which would then, I've noticed this with my classes, when they realise that that they've created this piece of work, that maybe it's a toadstool house or a fairy house or something, and they've made that all by themselves, and they can put it into their garden just by being shown the steps on how to put it together. It builds the confidence, and many have said to me, what can we make next? I want to make this next. Can you help me make that next? And so it's really just shown them the tips on how to do it, and that's what sparks that interest and sparks that desire then to move on to something else. If they just get the know-how, whether it is joining a little class or whether it's looking at a tutorial online on YouTube, it would be enough for them to sort of say, well, I just need this, and this, and I can get started. Yeah. I think that's it. It's just don't hold yourself back from doing something. Just try it. Try and adopt more of a yes, I can attitude. If somebody shows me how to do this, I know that I can make this. And then it just sort of builds confidence the more that you practice with it. And practice.
Yeah. And I guess that's what you've done, because obviously that's why you have such a connection to the elephant head, is because it was the first time that you have actually looked at something, and I think everything you've created has been beautiful, but you had to you have to think that, for yourself as well, I guess, because you are the person who's creating this piece of art. So I guess that's why you have that connection, because it's the first time you said to yourself, oh wow, that's actually I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and with practicing and everything as well, to be able to get the detail into the elephant. If I hadn't practiced on all the epic fails that I had done beforehand, then I maybe wouldn't have got a piece that I love so much. It really is just sticking with it, and your heart will come through in it. Yeah.
And let's give the elephant. The elephant has a name. What's his name? Horace is his name. we will stop referring to him as the elephant in the room.
Little Horace is doing all right.
I love him. Is he going in your garden, or is he just in the house hanging out?
He's in the house. He's in the house just now hanging out, because I'd had him at a few demos. Recently, but normally he's in the garden and amongst the flower pots and things.
I wonder if I wonder if you went along and when you have your craft stuff there, and how Heather has told me before that quite a few people have said to her, oh, I could never make that. I wonder if you actually had all the crappy sculptures that you'd made to get to that point in front of the elephant, gone, well, here's exhibit A, where I started with a stone. And here is a turd-looking thing. And then, and I progressively got better. You too can be a sculptor.
Do you know, I've got a few pieces in my garden. I've put them in the garden. I've got a few pieces in my garden that you look at them and you think, oh, that's questionable. Yeah.
Not
but
sure about that one.
I've done it, so it's going. It's taken pride of place. It's in the rockery,
Yeah, and I remember
there's a few pieces that I'm thinking, oh, not so much.
I remember you did a beautiful sculpture. I thought it was beautiful. You were worried because we forget sometimes that with the Peltai Premium armature, you don't need even the product to get started. You can start making your armature. And I remember you made this beautiful tree with the birds on it, and you said, I think I made the birds too big, so when you put the premium on top, they were huge. But it was still such a beautiful sculpture, but you were like, the birds look massive on that branch. And I had my own failures.
At the end of a branch.
Yeah.
Because they do look abnormally huge. Yeah.
I love it though. I love that piece, and I guess that's all a learning as well, right? Because it's almost like I read a book once called Failing Forward, and it's all about, well, you have to fail to get good at something, because then how are you going to get better? If you just straight out the bag do it perfectly the first time, well then where's the learning in that?
Exactly.
So yeah, don't be afraid to fail, people, because hey, we're all doing it every day in some area or another.
Brilliant at failing.
I excel at failing. But no, I think that's really good, and I think it's encouraging to see that you can take someone who has never sculpted before and show them how to do something, even if it is in plasticine or polymer clay or mixed media. It's just that act of actually getting in and doing it, and living creatively rather than just kind of talking about doing it. You're actually just trying it, and even fitting it into, even if you have a full-time job or you're just dabbling, use the time to watch YouTube videos like Heather said, and read books if you want to, or look up to people and be inspired by other people's creativity, and let that kind of flow through you and create your own magic. Yeah.
Pinterest also is a good place. I was looking for an idea. My mum had says to me about making her a birthday present, and I've got that up on my YouTube channel. Remember the snail, the cute snail? Mm-hmm. And so I had found a picture. It was just a cartoon picture on Pinterest, and I thought, oh, I could make something like that for 3D. And so Pinterest too is brilliant. And the picture that I got, it was a photograph of an elephant that I'm sure that was on Pinterest, or did I Google that? I might have Googled that, pictures of elephants. And that's how Horace came about. It was just a photograph. So I find that pictures on Pinterest can be really inspiring in that as well, because you think, oh gosh. And even for me, it's shapes and textures that get me, because especially for my mixed media work, it's all about the texture. It's all about, you know, what's popping out from the object, that whether it be a photo frame I'm doing, or whether it be a mirror or a box even, you know, and it's all the texture and detail that you get from putting different objects into like modeling paste and things like that, and painting over it. Yeah, it's all about the texture and shapes and things that really.
And funny, because that's what you started. You said you were always drawn to shapes and things like that. So it's obviously something that's just stayed with you the whole time, which is beautiful. And if people want to find more of your work and to see what else that you're doing, where would they go to find that?
Really just Facebook. I'm not big on advertising for sale and stuff like that. And even on my Facebook page, which is Heather's Craft Studio, is just work that I've done, and people tend to contact me right enough if they want me to make them something. But so there's Facebook, which is Heather's Craft Studio. There's my YouTube channel, which is Heather's Craft Studio, and Instagram.
Yes.
Instagram, which again, Heather's Craft Studio.
You're so original with your naming. Oh my goodness.
I wanted something a bit more unique than that, but I thought, gosh, Heather, you try different things, so you might as well just say it's Heather's Crafts.
Yeah, it's a craft studio. You can come and get anything you want in my craft studio. That's fantastic. Well, we'll link everything in the show notes, and also in the blog post that we put together for this episode. Anything else that you want to share?
I would say just practice, and don't let anything hold you back. Don't ever let anybody think that you can't do something, you know. So just go for it.
I really enjoyed talking with Heather and all of our guests on the podcast thus far. Please do go check out Heather's Facebook page, which is Heather's Craft Studio, and our latest blog post to see her work, and of course Horace the elephant, who we talked about in this episode. This was the last in season 2 of A Sculpted Life. We do hope you enjoyed this season, and we may be doing some bonus episodes in the coming months, so watch out for those. Season 1 and 2 playlists are available on YouTube, and they're all available on iTunes, so check them out if you haven't already. They were designed to be listened to whilst you create, so happy creating from me and the entire Tiya crew. And we would really welcome any review that you'd like to give the podcast, either on iTunes or commenting on our YouTube channel. We always love to hear back from people and let us know what you think of the episodes. We do have a mailing list on our website, paltiya.com, so please do join our community there. Thanks for listening.
If you want to know more about Tiya and our amazing product, Tiya Premium, then visit www.paltiya.com and join our international fan base.